But here are a couple things. So here, one, I'm not religious. You also hear, I don't trust my bank. You also hear, most challengingly right now, I don't trust my political leaders. 51% of millennials are registered to vote as independents. 25% fewer of us associate with an established religion than we did just 6 years ago. And so many of us, like myself, aren't even from this country. We don't just look and sound and behave differently. We are fundamentally different. I'm a third culture kid, for instance, just like my president, just like your president. I was born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is why I'm wearing this. I spent my middle school years in Shanghai, China, which is why I look like this. And I spent high school, fortunately and unfortunately, in Orange County, California, bro, which is why I sound like this. So again, like so many of us, I feel like I'm at home everywhere, but also nowhere. And you're never sort of a stranger, but you never quite belong because we are all minorities. You especially see this in media. Media, one of its great powers, it enables you to sort of transcend the physical world where you may not feel at home into the much freer and realer digital creative world. And nobody did this better than Mr. Walt Disney. It's why in 2009, when I graduated at the height of the recession, I wanted to go to YouTube so badly because I saw YouTube as becoming the 21st century articulation of the media conglomerate. Now, how many of y'all watch YouTube? How many of you regret watching YouTube sometimes? It's a dangerous thing. It's okay, our parents can't catch us anymore, it's all right. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You have a different kind of YouTube red. Anyway, we got a lot of Friday night people here. But in all seriousness, back in 2009, 2010, YouTube wanted to be Netflix. How many of y'all watch Netflix? Of course, everyone watches Netflix. We're making them so much money and not benefiting from it. That's right. YouTube wanted to be Netflix. Now, practically what that means is they wanted to invest in a bunch of library content, stuff you see on broadcast and theatrical distribution and so forth, and then invest in a bunch of original content on top of that to function as a Trojan horse to get people to watch even more. That's old school thinking. That is an incremental play. That's 10% dialing. And so instead, three of us sat there and we thought, one of the most incredible things about what YouTube had built was this democratization of distribution. Suddenly, with literally one press of a button, I can speak to someone that I'll never ever meet. Someone miles and thousands of miles away, someone oceans away. And that was compelling. But the other side of that equation isn't just distribution, it's creation. This is the harder part, because even though all of us have voices, not all of us have the ability to project that voice. And so we embarked on this 6-year journey to enable the democratization of creation, because we thought that sharing your voice and story is not just a privilege to a few, it is a right of the many, and it is the beginning of social movements, of economic change, and of political clout that we've seen time and time again in the last few years. In the past 6 years, and over those past 6 years, the YouTube creator ecosystem has blossomed into a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem, rich with ripe enterprises and new personalities that have fundamentally reimagined the entertainment system. And so I wanted to share a little bit about some of the lessons that we learned, because something that a lot of people don't know is that this multi-billion-dollar ecosystem was not just built by people that look like me, but it was built because of minorities entirely. And so I want to share 3 lessons in particular. First, we hear a lot about, oh, we want to earn our seat at the table. Or you got to yell and scream to get your seat at the table. That's all fine and well. That's all right. But the reality is you can wait to have your seat at the table, or you can build your own table, period. Number 2 is strength in diverse communities, regardless of how you structure them, begins from the inside. If you don't take each other seriously, and we don't take each other seriously, no one outside, you better believe, will ever take us seriously. And finally, and I hate saying this because it makes me roll my eyes, I hate it every time a politician says this, but we are fundamentally more similar than we are different. And I'll give you some palpable, empirically proven examples of how that's actually true. I can figure out how this works, by the way. Bottom button. I remember the first time I met Ryan Higa. That's not me, by the way, that's Ryan Higa. Yes, we look the same, but yes, you also might be a little racist. Ryan's my little brother. Ryan is the most subscribed to comedian in the world on YouTube. He has over 18 million subscribers, period. Each of his episodes on YouTube gets more viewership on average than the highest rated cable comedy, period. Most of you probably have never even heard of him. How many of you seen him? There we go, my man. There you go, my lady. 2 people. There you go. Ryan, in contrast to his traditional TV and film counterparts, is not classically trained. He's not a classically trained actor. He doesn't sing, or he tries to, but definitely doesn't sing. He doesn't dance, also tries to dance, definitely doesn't dance. And he's not white. On TV, fewer than 4% of faces look like mine and Ryan's. But on YouTube, 15% of the top 50 most subscribed to channels in the world are powered by Asian Americans. A lot of people don't know this, but the first data input that informed our formal structuring of what is now the multi-billion-dollar ecosystem is because I noticed, very strangely, that 3 of the top categories on YouTube were dominated by Asian Americans. Ryan dominated comedy, still does. Freddie Wong from USC dominated film. And Michelle Phan, Vietnamese beauty guru, dominated the beauty and lifestyle space. She's worth over $500 million today. No one knows this, right? And so we found that YouTube is suddenly a bastion, not just for Asian Americans, but for the African diaspora, for the LGBTQ community, for people who love underwater basket weaving and can finally find a good haven. By the way, that does indeed exist, just like iron skydiving exists on YouTube. And yes, it's as dangerous and stupid as it sounds. But we found that we were an incredible bastion for people who are mis or underrepresented. There's an old world that says you have to wait to be casted or greenlit to get your TV show made. But we effectively realized that we could create a new system where you were the casting director, and so you greenlight yourself. You don't have to wait for someone to give you feedback on a script that they may or may not ever read, because your audience is your greatest collaborator. As Alejandro said earlier, it feels like yesterday. We've been sitting so long. You see where my head's at right now. As Alejandro said earlier, people like you and I are twice as likely to export. So you better believe we exported. Because we realized that in order to exponentially grow the YouTube platform, not only to get more fans and dollars, but to get more creative voices, we had to go abroad. The world, as we all know, is so much smaller than it once was, largely because of A, device access, like the little things that y'all are Facebook Living on right now and Snapchatting on, for better and worse. 2, please move down, don't get in trouble. 2 is because of broadband connectivity, and 3 is because of platforms like YouTube that have accelerated how people and our stories are shared. On YouTube, for instance, not only is 80% of viewership coming from outside the United States, but 60% of viewership for any given video comes from outside of that uploader's country. It's coming from abroad. No longer do you have to be Japanese or in Japan to appreciate anime. You don't have to be Korean or in Korea to enjoy delicious Korean barbecue, which, I'm sorry to my fellow Southern brothers and sisters, is the best barbecue in the world. I know half you definitely agree, and then other half you go, oh my God, I'm forsaking myself. You no longer have to be in a place to be in that place, period, right? We know the world is so much smaller, and because we are twice as likely to export, when I was 25, 2 of my compositors and I decided, oh God, we can't say compositors anymore, can we? See, look at all the things Donald Trump has done already. Anyway, my friends and I, in Silicon Valley, we decided to globalize the partner program. It's the comprehensive suite of services for YouTube, monetization and so forth. We decided to localize it in 43 different countries to enable anyone to have a creative voice. That first year, we literally enabled millions more people to upload their voice to the world and brought in $300 million in its first year. So it turns out that we can talk about diversity as a philosophical imperative. But the reality is, not only if you want to scale your business, but if you want to make damn good business, it's an imperative there as well. Next. Who recognizes at least one of these faces? All right, we know a couple, right? One of the challenges that our community is facing, and I don't want to impress this upon everybody, because I think there are 4 of us in the audience right now. That's all right, progress, baby steps. But one of the challenges is we got a lot of press this year for what we call the whitewashing or the white-facing of Hollywood. Now, what that means is traditionally Asian or canonically Asian roles in TV and film that have been given to white actors. So we call some out. Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell is playing a Japanese character, right? Tilda Swinton is playing the ancient one, who is technically supposed to be Chinese in Doctor Strange coming up. Now, there are all sorts of good, rational reasons why this may have happened. And we've had a lot of backlash against it, which I'm really excited to see. Finally, my people's narrative is being seen mainstream and taken seriously. That's a good thing. My challenge with it, and why I'm so mixed on it, is because we're effectively, in being outraged, placating someone else's version of success. It's not ours. We think that suddenly, if we're on TV and we have a superhero in film, that the game changes. You know the problem with this? Is we've forgotten that we've already had that before. His name is Bruce Lee. And when he died suddenly, and by the way, is still to this day the only mass market Asian personality we've ever had, right? When he died, so did his replacements. There was no apparatus behind it. Now, don't mistake it. I'm not saying we don't need to invest in mass market TV and film. That's a very important endeavor. We got a lot of important things going there. But I'm also trying to say that if you're going to build your own table, it also has to be authentically in your own make. Let me explain what I mean. Big things don't happen overnight. Big things have small beginnings, as we have all heard and said, right? So when I take a step back and I look at the Asian community, we've got two options. One is we can overinvest in TV and film, where we will slave away for a long time and wait a long time to be casted. Or, in parallel, we can identify where we're already strong and invest there. And very happily, as you see from just 6 faces here, we're so strong in so many industries already. It's no secret that Korea runs so much of the beauty industry globally. How many of y'all use those Korean facial masks? How many of your girlfriends tell you about these Korean facial masks? How many of you modern men wear these Korean facial masks? Don't be ashamed. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. We own fashion with designers like Alexander Wang. We own 40 categories of food because who doesn't canonically love Chinese and sushi? And when you look to technology especially, whether it's YouTube or Snapchat or Twitch, we co-founded, Asian Americans co-founded, and still lead to this day so many of these platforms. The things that you hold and that you broadcast are ours. And so instead of just placating someone else's definition of success, I think we also need to invest in small ways where we're already strong. Now this, of course, gets to the next challenge, though. In contrast to so many other communities that we admire, whether you're a minority or you're abroad or whatever have you, we don't support each other in the Asian community. A lot of people think that we're this model minority myth. Everybody's heard of this myth, right? Oh, I'll regale you with stats if not. It's a great myth. It's a doozy. A, we're the fastest growing minority in this country. 2, B, we are by 2060 going to be the second largest race in this country. Powerful. By the way, we'll have a president around then too. 3, it'll be my daughter, by the way. 3, or C, we have the highest graduation rate, highest income, and highest spend across most categories of any race, full stop, despite only being 5% of the population. This is incredible. We are crushing it. We're doing so well. What's the problem with this myth? The answer is because it's exactly that. It's a myth. Because when you look to certain ethnicities like Laotians, like my Cambodian and Hmong brothers and sisters, we have the highest rates of unemployment, the lowest graduation rates, the lowest income, and the lowest spend across most categories per capita, period. In short, we don't have a common identity because we're so different. You extrapolate that to our entire race. We don't just not have a common identity struggle. We have 50 different ethnicities, hundreds of different dialects, fundamentally different religions. We don't have a common identity. We also don't have common convening spaces. We don't have synagogue or church that we can say hi to every weekend. It's great. We don't have any of that. And moreover, since we're children, we're taught that excellence, more often than not, unfortunately, is zero-sum rather than collaborative. So we don't support each other. And we know, and we've seen, especially in y'all's community, of how you place someone successfully in the Oval Office, how important starting small and inside your community really is. We don't have that. And luckily, there are some shining hopes. So one great example, of course, is the MBDA. Thank you, Alejandra, and thank you, Chen, Brother Albert Chen, for having me. We have also organizations like the Leaders Forum that was erected about a year ago to increase the number of elected and appointed officials who look and sound, maybe not sound, because I would never get elected, but look like me at least. And we have organizations like this one, the Coalition of Asian Pacifics in Entertainment, which I have the privilege of being vice chair of. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary of championing diversity in the arts. We have baby steps of this, but it's still not well orchestrated. It's still not nearly as collaborative as it needs to be. As I mentioned earlier, or as I alluded to earlier, a lot of this I realize may seem a little bit self-segregation or a little bit of like reverse racist, like the Asians helping the Asians, right? There are pros and cons to that. But I like to think about it, however cheesy, more as how do you strike commonality with other people? How do you find and enforce those commonalities? As I said earlier, one of the things I detest but I've also realized is true is how much more similar we are than we are today. Period. We all share one thing, and that is our humanity. And what I mean by that is we all start and we end in the exact same way, whether you like it or not. Every single one of us knows what I mean when I say that, right? We tell ourselves that because in between that start and end, we look, we sound, we behave differently, that somehow we're fundamentally different. And sometimes, by the way, those distinctions are real realities, there's no question. But more often than not, we are more similar than we are different. Period. Right? I remember I used to obsess over this philosophy at YouTube because we got to, bless you, we got to a practical point where we had to support literally hundreds of millions of creative partners around the world. And for those of us who have the privilege of supporting hundreds of millions of people and their emotions and insecurities and complaints, you know what I mean when I say I can't support every single one equally. So you have to force those commonalities so you can streamline the efficiencies. And we devoted 2 years in figuring this out, but we basically realized whether you are a musician in Bangalore, India, or you're a comedian in Berlin, or you're a sports franchise in Boston, all of y'all want the same thing. Everybody wants the same thing, we just talk about it differently. I'll give you an example. If a musician, like one of the esteemed people Mr. Andrews made famous, if you're a musician and you hold an event, what is that called? It's called a concert, that's exactly right. If you're a comedian, probably like another person Mr. Andrews made famous, or maybe like Ryan Higa, and you hold an event, what's that called? It's a show. It's a stand-up show, that's exactly right. But they both involve a stage, both involve lights, production equipment, tickets, a lot of beer, an audience, laughs. They're the exact same thing. We just talk about things differently. And I also remember, when my dad died when I was 13, and he was telling my mom, my incredible mother, I have to say that because she's live streaming this. Hi, Mom. But I remember he telling my mom that his only regret is he wouldn't be able to see my sister and I succeed. Now, whether you're a parent, whether you listen to your father or your mother, philosophers like Aristotle, technologists like Intel's head of research or Elon Musk, all these people will tell you that humans only want 2 things in life. Who knows what they are? This is empirically proven, this is not opinion. Great one. To belong is one. You just want to be loved. You find a great wife, or husband, friends, family, nephews, nieces. You just want to feel loved. And the second that is so much harder is you just want to matter. You want to know that what you did today was empirically important, not just today, but in tomorrow that you may never see. That's all any of us ever want. Right? This is especially pronounced, this desire to exist now and forever is especially pronounced in the people that we all can't stand, the millennials and centennials. The reason why is post-World War II fervor and 60s enthusiasm. By the way, enthusiasm is a euphemism for drugs in space. History, not opinion, history. That basically made our parents positively sunny, impossibly sunny. And that optimism was, of course, infused in each of us. We were told that we could actually do anything. And of course, follow on that is the Great Recession of 2008, when 200% more of my peers were unemployed than the year before. Suddenly, the world that you were promised, the world where you could literally do anything, is actually not the world that you're given at all. When something like that happens to you, and it manifests in different ways for all of us, you start to question your very foundation. I want to tell you a story about that here. Probably been wondering what the Scribble Scrabble is. This is my Pokemon Go strategy for tonight. Chicago is a beacon for Pokemon Go, let me tell you. Who knows who Talia Joy Castellano is? One of you will by the time that we're done with this. This is my last story, by the way, so you get rid of me. We can all go to supper and beer. Talia Joy Castellano was 7 when she was diagnosed with neuroblastoma, which is unfortunately a relatively common form of childhood cancer. I want you to raise your hand if you've been touched by cancer before, whether you yourself or you know somebody. It should be almost everyone, unfortunately. There you go. So all y'all who raised your hands, you know what it feels like when I say that while her friends were learning how to braid, she was scratching her wig at 7. It's unimaginable as a child, right? By the time she turned 11, Talia did the last thing you would expect her to do. She started showing the world her weakness and started uploading to YouTube. A very first video got over 30,000 views for the last thing you would associate with a wig-wearing cancer patient. Needless to say, terminally ill child, she had created a beauty channel. That first video was called Crazy Eyeliner, and obviously everybody thought she was crazy to do it. So why would you show yourself like this? But by the time Talia turned 12, she had amassed over 700,000 subscribers, all cheering her on through her 3 bouts of chemo and cancer, her video diaries, and of course, most importantly to her, so most importantly to us, her beauty tutorials. What's so incredible about Talia is she is a minority of a minority of a minority. She's not just Latina. She's not just a YouTube personality, which I know a lot of y'all think, oh, those are celebrities, right? She's not just a beauty guru. She's not just a terminally ill child. She is all the above and more. She's a niche of a niche of a niche. And despite that fracture, everyone watched her. Ellen DeGeneres christened her an official cover girl. Michelle Phan, the undisputed queen of beauty online, adopted her as a younger sister. As you probably guessed with the punchline, we lost Talia about 3 years ago when she was 13. A few days after she passed away, there was a video that was uploaded to her channel, Talia Joy 18. It was a bucket list that she had written just a few days before, and that's what this is. And what I love so much about this list is that it is so much, so fully realized of one person. You see everything, you can squint read, everything from putting a secret on a balloon and letting it float away to hanging out with the two youngest Kardashian sisters. So, for better and worse. To this day, all right, there we go, we're on to it. All right. To this day, her fans and her community of strangers are still swarming her channel. They're taking filtered photos, they're uploading videos, and they're sharing what others have checked off this list. And because of this fervor, because of this common struggle that belies itself in a young girl that you and I will never meet, Talia, as of this evening, has more than 1.5 million subscribers after death. We talk about diversity as a platitude too often. We say, oh, there's so many new opportunities it creates, so much new creativity. We all know all the numbers in the Nielsen Post. We know why it matters. But the reality is, the reason diversity is an imperative is because it is numerically the new majority. Tomorrow's majority is made of and by yesterday's minority. You see it even in our enterprises and the way that we behave. The world's largest hotel chain in the world is not Marriott, though I'm happy they got Starwood, go America. The world's largest hotel is Airbnb, powered by everyday strangers just like you and I. The world's fastest cars aren't powered by professionals, they're powered by Uber drivers. And the world's today most potent broadcasters like Talia live and die on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, full stop. Innovation has always belonged to the people that have been most inclusive, because the people that have been most inclusive numerically include the most humans. Whether you're trying to build your own system, find your own niche, forge bridges to sustain your own community, or finally, however cheesy, realize that we are more similar than we are different. Innovation, again, is not to be confused with technology. It is not to be confused with the shiniest, greenest new energy that you've never heard of. Innovation is always and will always begin and end with something as simple that lies in you and I. That's all I got.
I don't know how to top this conversation. I mean, this has been a tremendous event, and I want to thank you again, Emil and Blue 1647, because I learned a lot today. I hope you did too. I know we've been sitting for a long time, but we have to give these three individuals Earlier this week, we had another panel to talk about the Internet of Things. And we thought we were going to talk about technology. And we did to some extent. But we ended talking about humanity and the role that people play. I think today was a similar experience. We started talking about innovation and technology. And we wound up talking about the importance of inclusion and the human experience. At the end of the day, MBDA is trying to push this discussion forward in our country. We cannot continue to grow and be competitive unless we leverage the beauty of our diversity. We are here to talk about minority businesses, but we're also here to talk about breaking down the silos. I want to thank yet again all the wonderful people that put this event together. The ones that you haven't seen, the ones that are behind the scene. So I don't want to call them out by name because there are too many. But please know that this event was thanks to the hard work of so many people who are here in Chicago, who were in DC, who were in LA, in Tennessee, in so many different places. Please visit our website. Please give us your comment. We cannot improve unless we hear this feedback. What James Andrews said, We were Lean Startup before Lean Startup actually had a name. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon and travel safely. Thanks.